Well, greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to today's second half. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share this video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's second half, shall we? All right, folks. So when I initially made this video, it was like four and a half years ago, and I had just kind of gotten introduced to who Tom Horn was, and didn't know that this couple of video clips that you guys are going to see was Tom Horn discussing the military using Dogman or werewolf-like creatures. Check it out. I came across an email from a subscriber who left me two emails. And it said both government agent proof. That's it. That's it. And I was like, huh? And then I clicked on one. It was a mini video clip of a news footage from somewhere. I don't know. I've looked online for this and I cannot find it. Then I clicked on the other one and I was like, what did they just say? Because if I just heard them correctly, that really put cement down on the ground for me to believe the government is involved. I mean, I already had belief, but this is almost damaging belief, damaging information on the news. Holy cow. Here are those clips.
And say the average public that says, oh, they're going to cure cancer. Do it. Yeah, that bothers me much less than the divide.
So the first video that you just saw, you can kind of get the feel of, I don't know, I'm really not going to get into it, but obviously it's some sort of political conversation discussing whatnot, politics and government. But then we'll move on to the second video, which is the one that stopped me in my tracks completely.
I mean, when we start talking about warfighters who are something like a werewolf, and that may sound so outlandish, so astonishing as to be unbelievable. I mean, when we start talking about warfighters who are something like a werewolf, and that may sound so outlandish, so astonishing as to be unbelievable.
So the reason why I shared that last video twice is, well, if you didn't catch it the first time, maybe you caught it the second. And if not, go back and listen to it 2 more times. But if you read the captions at the end, be unbelievable, and yet it is exactly what the top advisory. I don't know where these came from, okay? I know that it looks like the news to me. I've scanned movies. I actually Google searched that clip, and it's not in any movies. Also, I've reached out to the subscriber who sent me both of these and have not gotten a reply. So I'm kind of in limbo on that, like where they came from. But it looks to me as solid evidence that, well, things are true. You just let your mind go wild with it like I did and see where you come up, because 1 and 1 does make 2. Let's get into some encounters now. Today's first subscriber submission. Hey Jeff, longtime subscriber, but never sent my encounter in. Not out of fear of what people think. I just can be lazy at times. But my encounter happened when I was younger, around 16 in 2006. I grew up in East Tennessee, around east of Knoxville. I grew up target shooting and hunting in the woods behind my grandparents' house. Where we lived was in a foothill of the Appalachian Mountains. The place I hunted was a good friend of the family's farmland. The land butted up to my grandparents' land, so needless to say, I was always over there. The layout of the land is a series of hills and valleys. One side of every hill has a clear of trees along with a valley, but the other side of the hills was a mix of hardwood and cedar trees. So my encounter was one day, late winter. I decided to go squirrel hunting, just getting out with my dog. My dog was just a black and tan hound mix with who knows what, as I picked her up as a stray. This day was very different than the rest, since normally she would just run all over the place, and if I needed to call her, I would just shoot my .22 and she came running. This time she wouldn't get more than 3 feet away from me before stopping and making sure I was still there. This day was a typical cliche, no sounds of nature. I shrugged it off and kept going, even though I knew that this was a sign of a predator being in the area. I walked up one hill parallel the tree line, about 5 to 8 feet off the tree line. I heard something matching pace with me, step for step. I stopped, it stopped. The entire time my dog was at my feet watching where the sound was coming from. Now I've grown up in the outdoors, and I know the difference between something walking on 4 legs and walking on 2. This was walking on 2. But it was in the cedar thicket, so I couldn't see anything past the tree line. I continued up the hill listening to this thing more or less stalk me, till I got past the cedar thicket, when it stopped. I walked further up and then down into the woods to see if I could look over and see anything. But as it never left the cedar thicket, I could not. I should mention that my dog refused to come into the trees with me. I walked back out of the trees and took the same path back down the hill, still 5 to 8 feet from the tree line. As soon as I got to the edge of the cedar thicket, the heavy footsteps started, step for step. This entire time I never felt afraid or dread like many people mention. I was more curious than anything. I wanted to know what this thing was that was stalking me. As I reached the edge of the thicket, there was about 10 yards of open ground, then a 5-foot strand barbed wire fence that separated our land from our friend's land. As I reached the end of the tree line, the creature let out a deep guttural growl that I felt. I instinctively turned to face where it had come from and backed up until I was against the fence. The creature never came out of the wood line and into view, so I never actually saw it, but I know what bears sound like as well as wild dog, coyote, and this was neither of those. The deep sound and the length of the time of the growl, the lungs on this thing had to have been massive to be able to hold the growl for that long. As I hit the fence, the only thing I could think was all I have is a single shot bolt action 22 in 10 yards to place a shot. I might as well had a club. I stood waiting for the worst to happen to my dog, standing her ground right next to me. She must have picked up on my body language that I wasn't going to run. I was going to make a stand. After what seemed like an eternity, probably close to 3 minutes, I heard the creature walk away. I wasted no time hopping the fence and returning home. I told no one about what happened since I knew they would forbid me for going back hunting there. The next day I did go back out, but this time I had a short-barreled Remington 1100 12 gauge loaded with buckshot and slug. When I reached the spot I had walked, I found a kill site of what had to have been more than one rabbit. I knew it was rabbit from the fur and bones I found that weren't there the day before when I was. P.S. I also have a few paranormal stories and another I guess encounter if you'd like to hear them. Well, my friend, if you're listening, you know my email. You know I want to hear them. Today's second subscriber submission. Hey partner, I've been a fan since I found your channel. I really admire your work and grit. Before you, I was trying to tolerate the cat. I need not mention whom I believe has found passion in profiting from people's real-life fear and concern over helping them. That moonlight sonata of his smells of someone who spent too much time watching Michael Myers, I think. I'm not one to drag someone into uncomfortable conversation, but I think a man of your integrity understands. Anyway, that was me saying I am really thankful for someone with your heart. Now, if you will, sir, bear with me. I am not much of a writer, but I can assure you I've got quite the story. I'm just a simple 38-year-old man from Elberton, Georgia. My great-grandfather worked for a granite business that erected the Georgia Guidestones, Elberton Granite and Finishing Company. His name was Charles Erskine Mann, a journeyman sandblaster in the granite business. My mom argues that he did all the sandblasting work on the Guidestone monuments, but I know that to be untrue due to the documentation that a fellow named Charlie Clamp the work, and me personally. It satisfies me knowing that. My point is, Alberco, Georgia is a place all of its own. I see UFOs on a nightly basis. I've even developed somewhat of a relationship with them. I know them and they know me, to say the least. This all really kicked in overdrive in early 2016. One morning upon dawn, I heard unusual movement in the flank around my home, practically surrounding by woods. So I decided to throw a heavy stone into the area which I heard this, and no doubt I nailed something inhuman. Immediately this thing starts barking at me. Funny thing is, it sounds like a small dog. Now mind you, I seen the height of which I threw the stone upon impact, which was a minimal of 8 feet from the ground. Immediately, I felt intimidated and started hollering back at it, throwing more stones. Suddenly, this thing bolts to another location to bark at me, and there is no way possible a human or any animal anywhere on Earth could move that fast through the dense woods. No way. The span of a football field in 2 seconds is what this thing done. It never showed itself to me. This went on for a good 4 minutes until it stopped. The time being, that is, later that week, I was up late putting a water pump on my truck. It was a cold late, and I'm tired from working all day. My dog of 15 years that was outside with me, now my back is facing the same wooded area upon where I threw those stones. After an hour or so, I hear This extended scream, it sounds like an amateur human mimicking a coyote's long yelp, but as it ends the yelp, it hoots like a barn owl. Now, when I say it was loud, I mean it was loud, and I felt it in my very being that it was directed at me. I was too tired to fight back, and that had already went inside before me upon hearing this, and anxious as he is for adventure, that told me I shouldn't be so anxious either to mess with it. Time goes on, I hear things on my roof at night, growls, real strange cackling dog yelps, trees being thrown around like toys, the list goes on. I've got a reason to think I'm actually being protected by a couple of werewolf / Dogman as well, but that's another story. And I must add in the past 2 years, my best friend, that dog Dat, was found ripped apart. He was old and a good dog and didn't deserve that. I know what a coyote, bobcat, fox, and other animals behave and sound like, and Jeffrey, this is no ordinary occurrence. I will write you again. Keep up the good work. Thanks for your time. Here is his second email. I figured I'd send you the rest of my encounter stories, and the one reason why I feel as I am protected by something. This happened a couple of months ago. I was outside at night, and to my right, about 60 feet away, is the wood line. It's dark, so I can't see. Suddenly I hear something quite heavy running and coming to a stop, panting for breath. I compare it to a grizzly gasping for air. There are no grizzly in Alberton, Georgia. But whatever this was no man or common beast of all these fields. Immediately, I remember my dog of 15 years and his unfair end he met, being ripped to shreds at his end. You ever seen that Van Damme movie, Double Impact? Well, there's a part where Van Damme faces Bolo Yang in the factory-type area where Bolo is tossing 55-gallon cans at Van Damme. At the start of the fight, he uses sign language to indicate, "You and I are going round to round till the death." Well, I did the same thing toward the noise. I heard then I did a 2 gesture indicating, "You go your way, I'll go mine." Of course, I know I've no chance against these mysteries, but immediately after this gesture of peace, I heard him scurry away to the distance and stop. Then 2 distinct, haunting, melancholy, eerie, yet harmful howls rang out. I could distinguish one male, one female. I feel as though no one believes me sometime, and I even still find myself questioning my own sanity. But I'm no liar, and I'm not crazy. I'm not hallucinating. This truly happened. And I felt this sadness coming from these mournful howls I heard. I could speculate on end to why, but I felt moreover as if they weren't in any way a threat, and they were not the same entity I've been harassed by for years now. I used to enjoy spending time in the flanks and woods, but I can't anymore. I immediately know when they are around, and they are never far. There was a time in this where I went on for a couple monster hunts with holy relics from Jerusalem. I have from a pilgrimage my great-grandmother went on in January of 1983. Being a metal worker, I've even invented my own alloy chain whip with a cross welded to the tip, blessed in holy water. But I've lost these things since and grown older and wiser to the strength of these things. Jeffrey, you wouldn't believe this, but I've seen things going on at night in space I know are nefarious toward men. I've seen satanic rituals in broad daylight with the use of chemtrails. If you have a welding helmet, you can see much around the sun at certain times of the year. I've seen all-seeing eye in this pyramid and much more. In my own personal research, I've learned that stories are told and retold in the clouds. In the Book of Enoch, it tells of a specific angel who teaches a forbidden art of cloud reading. Anyway, that's a whole different concept from cryptids, but I can assure you it's relative. Well, anyway, I just figured send you another message. God only knows what kind of BS liars and frauds you deal with in your work, but I can assure you I am not one. I know the price of even the most simple lie being told. Believe me, I've paid for my share of them. Anyway, take care and God bless. Brother, if you're listening to this, please, I'm going to send you an email. But if you don't get mine before you hear this, send me an email. I think I said that wrong. Anyway, I'm going to send you an email. If you hear this and I don't, by the time you hear it, send me one, because I'd like to have you on. I'd like to have a talk with you. I think you'd make a very interesting interview and upload. And judging from what you just said about the Book of Enoch, I think you know what you're talking about, and I think other people are going to agree. So email me, please. Moving on. Today's third subscriber submission. I want to thank you in advance for taking the time to read my experience. I really enjoy your channel and the information you give us all. I had an experience with something supernatural when I was 8 years old. I'm 37 now, and I have thought about this night often throughout the years as a bad dream. Until last month, when I was having lunch with my mother, my experience was back in 1993, Philadelphia. My parents were remodeling the second floor of our home, so during renovations, we all camped out in the living room. My mom set up the air mattress, tons of blankets, and pillows after dinner that night, so we all could get some sleep. My dad would turn off all the remaining lights downstairs, then mute the TV once my brothers and I were asleep. I woke up during the night after everyone was sleeping. I heard a growl. I remember sitting right up and feeling scared. I turned my head toward the dining room and the kitchen. I seen about 5 to 6 dogs. It was dark in that area, but I could clearly see a black wolf-like dog with red eyes. They were pacing from room, but never took their eyes off of me. I was frozen, just sitting there, staring back, shaking with fear for a few minutes, until I could finally softly say, "Mom, Mom, Mom," over and over. She woke up. I remember my mom hugging me and telling me I was safe, and I said, "Do you see the dogs?" She hugged me tighter, saying it was a dream, "You're safe," to close my eyes and go back to sleep. I never spoke about that night again until last month. My mom and I were having lunch, and we were talking about the good old days and laughing, until I looked at her and said, "Mom, do you remember the night we were camping in the living room, and I woke up about the black dogs?" And before I could finish, her face turned completely white, and she said, "With the red eyes?" I was a little worried looking at how pale she turned and confused with the tone of her voice she used. I said, "What's wrong?" trying to lighten the mood. I laughed and said, "It was just a dream, Mom." She turned and said with a straight face, redacted, "That was not a dream. I woke up and saw you sitting right up staring into the dining room and kitchen area. When I turned to see what you were looking at, I saw the dark black dogs with red eyes pacing back and forth staring at you." She said even after she had me in her arms, their eyes were locked on me, still pacing. I never saw them again after that night. My mom refused to speak about it anymore. She just looked at me straight in the eyes and said that was not a dream. She saw them too, and she would like not to speak about it again. Jeff, that's my experience, and now I know I wasn't dreaming. I now spend my days wondering what this means. The fear and confusion of what I was looking at that night will be with me until the day I die. Maybe by sharing through you, I can at least find someone with similar experiences. Well, there you have it, folks. Today's second half. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting this channel. It is your support, after all, that keeps this channel growing and going, and what gives people a chance and a place to share their experiences and theories. Guys, I'd also like to see you at tonight's Saturday Nightmares live from New York at 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a lot of fun and go through a lot of experiences. Also, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on your children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the answers, and God bless.